Mr. Vivek Kimani, on the stage.
So, how do we know that ideas are good? Okay, so I'm going to present one slide. So here the first slide basically is about you have gone to a customer. So all startup ideas start with a need. Some customer has a need. So an entrepreneur basically is the one who spots this need earlier than others, or is able to listen to this need more carefully than others. Okay, is able to understand this need better than others. This is basically the origin, the starting point of a startup idea, right? There is some customer has a need, and in fact, I've seen many startup ideas which start with this story that somebody is saying about his own experience, his or her own experience. What happened when they did something like, for example, their son had a problem. I know a person who told me that his son had a problem, they couldn't speak. When something happened, he could not speak, and so the thing that you need to do to get this person to speak again requires you to import something which is very, very expensive. They said, why would it be that you have to some simple plastic tube it is there? And you pay lakhs of rupees to import it, and then you have to. So he started making it. Okay, the problem came because his son was not able to. And most of the passionate stories you hear, right, is about individual experiences of people, their own experience. They experience something and they say, hey, this problem needs to get solved. And if something has happened in their family, like something died. For example, during the COVID, we saw a lot of innovation. People started making oxygen concentrators and ventilators and so on because they saw death around them. When it says people can't be dying for this. And that creates passion, right? And passion is the root of startup ideas. I think Professor Suresh will agree that without passion, you don't have any startup. Okay, startup needs passion, and to be passionate about the idea, you must experience that need yourself. Okay, of course, if you go and listen to somebody else, they tell the story and you feel empathetic, then you will also experience the same need and you will try to solve that issue in a much more vigorous way. So it all starts with the customer need. And when you listen to a customer and they tell you the need, then you're thinking, if one person is saying this, they have this need, maybe many other people also have this need. Right? You must have seen this video of Mohammed Mustafa, who started IT company which makes batter. And he said basically, he's saying that it's clear that at that time people would either make the batter at home, which is a very time-consuming process, and then you can't keep it for too long, it will go sour and all. Or they will buy a batter from somebody who is not hygienic. Right? It's like buying, packaged meat, for example, today is now becoming hygienic, but otherwise you're buying it from a non-hygienic. So how do you get batter that was made now, recently, in a hygienic manner? And that is the problem he solved for a customer in some sense. And he experienced that need. Okay? So if one person has the need, then you're thinking that many people have the need. So if I can find these many people, then somehow I can serve all these things together. So it all starts with the customer's need. Okay? So now, key problem is, customer might say that, okay, you are giving me a solution which serves my need, okay, but it requires me to do many things differently. Right? It requires me to do many things differently. So there is a cost incurred in my, accepting your solution. Cost may not be expressed in rupees. For example, I'll tell you that, you have solar. For example, you can set up solar, whatever it is, on top of houses, right? But if you set up these solar things on top of houses, the chances are, because the houses are set up in such a way that houses are abutting each other and so on, I set up a solar thing on top of my house, it impedes or creates problems for my neighbor. Can happen? You can imagine that? So my neighbor may object. Now, how do you express this cost in rupees? This is a cost. Customer says, I like the idea of your solar panel. I like your idea of installing it in my home. But I'm afraid. I'm worried what my neighbors might say. Right? So, for example, you can say that I have this beautiful solution, but it requires you to break open the wall, or you need to basically replace the switch panel or something like that in the house. Now, can I really do that or not? I don't know. Whether the building will allow me to do it, whether my authorities will allow me to do it, and so on. So, those are costs which can't be expressed in rupees. Okay. Now, many times when we come up with solutions which seem like obvious solutions and try to insert it into the customer's domain, right, or environment, we find these kind of issues coming up. They kind of express it not immediately. They'll say, okay, let's try it. They start the solution. When you start installing it, that is when you discover these kind of hidden costs. Costs where basically the behavior of the person may need to change if they have to adopt a solution, right? Costs where it might have an impact on environment, it may have an impact on something else. You may generate some other issues, side issues, which you cannot address easily, and so on. And this gets pushed back. So you might get an initial push in your market with your product or solution, but because of this pushback, right, you find basically that you can't go any further. This can happen. Okay, so at what cost? You have to know basically the customer's environment. It's not enough just to understand the need. You've got to see in the way in which the customer will actually consume your product or solution. Is that going to make a big change in the customer's operating environment? If it is, there's a problem. Okay, you better recognize and solve it even before you start deploying your solution. Most customers will say they have a need. You make a product or service, you go to them and try to sell it to them. They're going to say, I'm not paying for it. Okay? It happens often. I've seen it many times. Okay? They're not paying for it because they thought, okay, I have this need. Doesn't mean that I said I'll pay for it. I thought that government will pay for it. Or somebody else will pay for it. Or the community will pay for it. Or, the shopkeeper will pay for it. Or the guy. I'll give you an example, right? So we had this interesting company, Vivek will remember, called Taco Sasken Automotive Enterprise. Tata Automotive Components and Sasken, we made a joint venture. And then I was on the board of this company, and our first product we made was a digital display for Reva. Reva was the first electric car that came up, the Jason Miney stuff came out. So we were making the digital display, we went to him and we sold the digital display. He was happy, he took it. We got very encouraged, we said this digital display is such a nice product, we should sell it to other automobiles. We went to other companies. They said, we like the product, please give us the product, we'll try it and all that. And after that, we started discussing price. When we started discussing price, the guy said, I like your product, it is doing a lot of things, it's displaying many more things, but the price point at which you have to sell it to me is exactly not 1 rupee more, exactly the same price as my current analog instrumentation. He won't give me a rupee more, okay, not even 1 rupee. So, whereas we had a digital product, analog product, you can imagine it just costs some coins and things like that, it just goes meter, right? And now you're making a digital product, obviously the cost will be more, but they will not spend a rupee more. Most companies will expect you to deliver a lot more, but they will not pay you a rupee more. Okay, so you have a fantastic solution, but the customer is not willing to pay what you do, right? This is a standard problem, okay? Or they expect that somebody else will pay for it, right? Oh, I like this solution, teaching, education solution, but why is the school not providing? School should pay for it. I'm already paying my tuition fee to the school. And the school will say, look, I know, I'm already giving you what I can with whatever I can. Now you have the parent to pay. Like this, the ball will keep shuttling back and forth between parent and school and you'll be running off. Correct? So you have to find not only a customer need, you have to find a way to solve that customer need without affecting the customer too much in terms of environment. You got to get the guy to pay for it. This is a hard issue to solve. This is where the startups founder. Okay. Sometimes you will say, okay, let me just give it free in the beginning because there are other things that I can collect, like data of the customer, something or the other. Many of these business models I don't have much faith in, but nevertheless, you can say all this and say, I'll try to build a product. Even then, and I tell you, we created a company for education where we were offering things for free. Even then, people will not adopt your solution. Even then. Why is that? They may not adopt it because that your product, basically just to install that product, takes time of the customer. To learn about your product features, takes customer time, and people value time. Okay? Just because you give it free doesn't mean they're going to use it. Okay? Just because you give it free, of course you can give it free and say, I will give you like Red is doing, I'll give you also some money. Right? Or other people are doing, right? To Paytm and all did it. I say, I'll give you some more money. Then maybe they will do it because they value their time that much. I don't know. You take 10 rupees and you're willing to install an app, right? Means your time is worth 10 rupees. I presume. Right? Economics should tell us. But people may be incentivized, I don't know. But still, nevertheless, time, convenience, right? If it, and more than anything else, if you say that I'm going to insert ads in your thing and all, it's annoying, it's intrusive. I hate the idea of apps. I install an app and it starts giving me notifications every morning. It's very, very intrusive. I don't like it, okay? So these are things which come in the way. And so they may actually install your app or whatever it is you have a product, but the minute they find it is intrusive, they'll uninstall it and go away. Alright, that's what they're going to do. Or it takes away some other liberties, data, you don't know what you're doing with the product, you're taking my data and doing what with it, I have no idea. Today these things are becoming very important, okay? Everybody is worried what your app is doing. Is it stealing contact information? Is it stealing that? Is it stealing that? Is it putting some malware in your phone? Right? All these kind of things. So even if it is free, customers still think about it as not free. They think that there is some cost in there, and unless you address that upfront, these concerns, you are never going to enter that customer, okay? You have to address it upfront. Now, most customers will come back and ask you, what else can I get along with the product? Like, am I getting 10 rupees more, some freebies? We have this, like, we are trying to do this app right now, and then people are asking us, are you going to give us some deals, offers? Whatever it is. We are helping migrants manage their daily, monthly basis. That's what we're doing. But that company, so basically our people are asking, will you give us this freebie? Will you give us some free time, airtime? Will you give us this? Will you give us that? And so on. Whenever they ask us, this means that we have to think about our product. Is our need real or not?
Yes, sir.
They're asking something else. Give me something else. It means that their need was not real. They're not ready to pay for their real need. Okay. So clearly, value proposition questions come up when people ask these things. Okay. And if you are not clear about how you are going to be profitable from the product from day one, per customer, if you can't work your unit profitability from day one, for every customer you have to work out. What are the numbers? If you can't make the money, we started in some friends of ours in remember LifeCan, we started a company called LifeCan, so like MedPlus and all this. The change road distribution, I have put my money in it and it went down the tube. The problem that company, why it went down the tube, that company, was because we did not have a profitability model from day one. That is it. I will put that as the single reason for failure for the company. Somebody thinks basically that if I can scale up and get IT systems and operational efficiency to improve and that improves and this improves and procurement scaling improves, then I will eventually reach profitability. That's all nonsense. Okay. You have to be clear right from day one what your profitability model. If you are not clear, it's gone. I think the model is gone. You're never going to make it later. Of course, it's possible that you can pivot. I will tell you later to get to profitability. It's possible. But if you don't have the model from day one, you're in trouble. Okay. People sometimes there are problems that many startup people try to solve, which have been there festering for years together, hundreds of years, tens of years. Okay, and then you think that some technology will come and solve this problem. The answer is it won't. Most of the times, if the problem has been there for a long time, there is a structural reason for that problem. Okay, the structural. I found out, for example, that not where I'm staying now, but where I was staying earlier, there was no shop in that street. For some reason, there was no shop at all. I was wondering why there is nobody opening a shop. I mean, generally, if you have a lot of houses, people will come and automatically somebody will open one dukan, some shop will come and all. So I generally went around and asked somebody, why are you not opening a shop on my street? He said basically that there is this super store there which is run by some politician guy. The minute anybody tries to open a shop in this area, anywhere, that fellow will come with his tools. Okay. So nobody even wants to touch this area. They are happy opening shops elsewhere, but they'll never come here. So these are things nobody tells you. Nobody tells you these things. Okay. Most businesses have these kind of elements, right? Any business you start, there will be these elements. You will have some right of way issue. You will have to run something over somebody's property. You will have to all these things you have to do. You can't have to do. Okay? And all of these things will basically be problematic. Okay, they're problematic. So whenever a need is left unserved somewhere, usually therein lies some structural problem. Okay, it could be because some middleman is there who is making money. For a long time, I wondered why there is no train running between Kerala and Bangalore, or Kerala and Bangalore. The western coast of India doesn't have too many trains. Okay, then I figured out basically that the bus mafia over there basically has control over everything, including decision making and governments. So they would not allow anything to be passed because that means that it impedes their ability to make business there. So all these kind of hidden factors will suddenly surface. Some middleman will be making money, he will surface. Okay, when you start your business, he will suddenly surface and he will put impediments. So you have to identify why some need has not been served for a long time. There will be a structural reason. If you don't know what the structural reason is and think that technology is going to fix it, you are in trouble. Okay, let me tell you. Okay, so you have to ask not only whether this need is there, but has it been there for a long time and is there an underlying structural problem? Winning the trust of a customer is extremely hard. Especially first up. In IIT Madras, we have a very clear policy to approve business plans, okay, of students, people who come to incubate there. If you have seen the customer, you have sold to the customer something else, they give you a incubate. Otherwise, you're not interested in incubation. Very simple thing. Because the hardest problem is finding customers. Hardest, okay? Because winning the trust. If you're sold, so for example, I'll give you an example. There was this guy. He basically does service work. He has a company that does services of, this PLC machine. Triple Indian is all manufacturing related. Okay, so you have this PLC machines, programmable logic controller machines, right? This machines which basically control the CNC machines, machine tooling and all that it does, and it collects it digitally, drives it, and so on. It collects a lot of data. So these PLC machines, that various things inside electronic components in it fail. So basically, they call this guy and he services it and he repairs it and all. And he found that whenever he was replacing anything inside the CNC machine, he would bring components from abroad. Most of these components, wherever the machine was bought from, the PLC machine, PLC equipment, that vendor would supply, like Honeywell or something, he would supply the components at some very absurd price. Normally they discount the base product and then their components, spare parts, they will sell at some absurd price. Okay, that's how they make a profit. So they lock in and then they will basically. So he figured out that all these components are standard components, some thyristor, some UCD and all that. Why can't we make it in India? He started making it in India and he used to go to tell customers that I can substitute these things with my product rather than somebody else's product. This is the company he created. Now the reason why we liked this company and incubated him was because he was already selling lots of services into many companies in the sector. So the customers trusted. If he says I will replace this with something else, if somebody comes and does electrical work in your house and he is doing it regularly, and every time you are happy with this fellow, he replaces your tube light, he replaces this fan, everything. He does a good job. Next time the guy comes and says, why are you using this particular regulator or something like that? Why I have a better regulator I found in the market. You should try it. You will obviously say yes because you trust this guy, isn't it? You will do that. So getting the customer's trust is very hard. This is why it's a good idea to sell to a known customer. You have a credible way to sell to a known customer first time, right? And of course, if you want to expand to more customers, that becomes harder because it's not scalable model. But then you can build on references, right? Word of mouth and so on. So sold to customers, those guys speak good about you. You carry their references and go to other customers, and slowly you can build the credibility. Or at least you can tell people that so and so other people have bought it, and you can check them out if you want for reference, right? That way it works. When you're doing B2B selling, right? You're selling to another company. 99% of the time, you go to the top of the company, CEO, CXO, somebody, you make a sale, the guy is very excited. But he says, look, in my company, if you have to get something to be bought, you need some person. This person who is an operational manager, that person who is finance person, that person who is ABC, has to sign off, right? He has to like the product. You go to the school principal, correspondent, whatever it is, you have sold a product. The guy likes it. He says, I like this idea, you should try it. But unless my headmistress signs off or my teacher signs off, physics teacher or somebody signs it off, this product I don't think I can accept it because eventually they are the ones who are going to. The minute you see this, some flag should go up, okay, for you. Because most of the times these person XYZ, whoever it is, will probably block your product. They're going to be impacted by the product they're going to give. Many times, right? They have some vested interest in keeping the status quo going. Introducing anything else is probably going to change something for them. They don't like it, they'll block it. Okay? So you're going to get resistance from them. From the minute you say somebody needs to sign off, that is a problem. Okay? So you have to work through the hierarchy. I have often found basically that when you sell from the top and go down, you get into trouble. I often do my selling at the bottom and then go to the top. Okay? This has worked for me, at least when I was in the company, I used to do that quite a while. Make sure the managers below are already signed up when you go to the top because you don't get top people's time often. When you go there, that day and time, and the guy says, other fellow is there, why? He's already signed off, if you tell him. He's for it. Call him if you want. That guy comes to the room and says, I'm sold on. That seals the deal. Okay? That's the way it works. Alright? This is a much harder problem. Okay? You have met my need and all that. Yeah, I'm very happy with you, but now I have found somebody else. So, can you sell to the same customer? Often this becomes very difficult. You can sell to one customer, but when you go back to that customer, the guy, if he has found the product nice and he found some other product which is more compelling or is from a brand or well-known person or something else, and he's bought it from there. So you created the market, you entered and created the market, right? It was a need, it was not being served, you entered and created the market. But once the market has been created, you think that the market is yours. It is not. I'm sorry. Some other biggie will find an easy way to enter the market and displace it. Okay? So keeping the customer or retaining the customer is harder than finding the customer. Finding the customer is one thing, it's one set of problems. But retaining the customer is a wholly different set of problems. Do I have a what is called a unique selling proposition, whatever it is? Do I have something which basically other people don't have? And other people not only don't have, they cannot create easily. Because of their way of doing business or whatever, they can't do it. Then I have something which is unique. Very often, most people don't have this thing called use. We write it in books, we teach it in strategy and all. But it's very difficult to create this thing called USP. More easy to create something like a lock-in. Okay, lock-in basically means you do something which basically does not make it easy for the customer to do. Like you created an installation or something in his house, it's not easy for him to take up. Okay, something like that. Okay, those kinds of things, basically, or you created IT software is a great place for getting lock-in. Because you have all these databases, they have some unique formats, they have some APIs, they're all written in some geek language. Nobody knows how to change it from one to another. And so you lock the person in for life. Okay, that is how SAP and all things now. Okay, even though they are not very good, they know basically how to lock customers. So that is a thing that one has to think about, how to continue to keep the customer, right? And many times you see basically that customers come back and say, you know, if I want to buy more from you, I want to repeat orders from you, and I want to build you up, I need something to show that you are committed to this space. Okay, I am not satisfied with the fact that you have a product, I am using the product, that's fine, but I want to see that you are committed to this. So when you continue to support me, so you will give me an engineer who will sit in my site and will take care of my needs on a daily basis, this kind of thing. Alright, you create a customer support center, whatever it is. How does your support structure work? You can show your customer satisfaction, whatever. Unless you see significant investments being made by the startup company, right, in creating this kind of systems that basically demonstrate that you are committed to this space, you are going to be in this space for a long time, this solution space, or you back to get the backing of a credible agency, which will sign up with some agency which has a brand who is willing to put their brand, co-brand it with you, right? And then basically, then people think, okay, if this brand, if Tata is supporting it, basically it must be credible, something like that. Okay, that's not right. Okay? Most times people can't scale their business because it's founder dependent. 90% of the time, founder dependent business. You know, for example, you go to a restaurant, you like the food, because somebody has cooked the food. If that person goes away and his son or daughter or somebody else comes and cooks that the food quality is terrible, you don't want to go to a restaurant. So if it is like that, that business is not scalable. And if you as a founder basically are depending on your selling skills, your execution skills, your things, ABCD things to actually serve customers and so on, there is no scalability model in that. Okay? So how do you find a way by which you can replicate what you are able to do individually as a founder? How you are able to replicate that across the organization? Create a kind of ethos in the organization where similar things are being done. It's a very hard problem. Most people can't get it right. Okay? So usually basically founders are very hands-on and then they get, when they see a problem, they jump in and try to fix it. Okay? And they don't give space to other people to come up and they don't get trained people, they don't take effort to do all that. So therefore there is no scalability, there is no focus on quality, no focus on consistency, metrics and so on. Simply because the founder is so busy selling and executing. They don't have time for it. Okay? So that becomes a problem. And that's where companies fail to scale. Okay? They may start, they may reach some number like, I've seen companies reach 80 lakhs, 1 crore, 2 crores, these numbers are very common. 5 crores, then 3, 4 crores. And then they stagnate at that level for a long time. They're unable to grow beyond that. Because it's very founder driven. Okay? This is the hardest in some sense problem because it breaks companies. I've seen many companies breaking for this reason, right? You go to a customer has a need, you serve the need, the customer is happy, but in the process the customer has seen a lot of things that you have. He has seen your method, your working, he has evaluated you, right, over a period of time. Now the customer actually opens up and says, that was not my need, that was a need, I agree. But that is significantly irrelevant. I have a different need which is slightly more interesting and good. Can you serve this need? Okay. Now it may turn out basically that this new need requires you to do a pivot. Right? I'll give you an example, right? Vivek will remember we had in Sasken, we created this joint venture called Connection. We were just discussing it in lunchtime. Since we were discussing it, I thought I'll tell you. There's a company that was meant to basically IoT, this is long back, I don't know how many years, 15 years ago. We're doing M2M, IoT stuff for pipelines. We were monitoring pipelines and a lot of things. And we hit a customer who said basically that, the bigger problem for us basically is managing assets which basically, like for example, telecom towers. For various reasons. So, but the business model for telecom towers is different and business is much larger. If you hit this telecom tower space, you can create a business 100 times what you have today. Something like that. Okay, imagine. Now, as a startup, you have to decide whether you want to get into this business of doing, say, telecom tower monitoring, which is 100 times larger business, probably lower profit, requires a lot of resources. In fact, the company will be sunk into that. Or you should stay focused on doing your cube solutions, one-time solutions, pipeline, and all that. Should you make this pivot or not? This is a question, okay? And many companies, their founders, basically, there are 3 people in the founding team. One guy thinks we should do it, 2 guys think we should do it, and maramari and all that, and they break up. Company breaks this time, okay? But this pivot is the one, in most companies, this pivot is the one actually that they did, and that pivot was successful, and that's why the company is made. Many companies you hear go about talking to them, you'll find out that they did make this pivot. The point is that customers don't open up in the beginning. They will say they have some need, that's fine. When you start working with customers, only the real need will start surface. And as an opportunity, if you are able to address that and you make the pivot successfully, then only a real company actually gets set up properly. But that transition is extremely hard. Okay? So that's all I had. So you can see basically that all I have presented basically is some viewpoints that a customer might present to you and how would you respond. Okay? So what we will do is that we will have Vivek talk, and then Suresh, maybe you can say a few words, and then we will open the floor for questions after that. Okay? So that we don't have, right? So we'll have questions for everybody, all 3 of us. Is that okay? All right. Thank you.
Now the time is for Mr. Vivek Himani to come on the stage, and he will be giving his speech on the theme entrepreneurial mindset. So in India we have 3 kind of diet. Some people are non-vegetarian, some people are vegetarian, and some people feeds on the motivation. So on to you, sir. Please go on the stage.
It's kind of difficult to go after a good lunch and give a speech. So I'll try and make it interesting. But when Sankalp reached out to me and said that I should come and talk about entrepreneurial mindset, I thought I don't know what mindset definition should I talk about, but I just wanted to share some of my experience. All right, so I think we'll start this session with Q&A, right? Where I will ask the questions. Alright? So that I know that everybody is here. Alright. So, how many people are here because they want to become an entrepreneur? Wow. Thank you to all of you for raising your hands and having the dream of becoming an entrepreneur. And so tell me, in one word, right, across anybody who wants to answer the question, why is it that what is it that you want to get out of entrepreneurship? Satisfaction. Job givers. Solve a problem. So, what I'm hearing, other than the movement of the papers, is creating an impact, maybe on the society, right? Some versions of that impact is by creating jobs, right? Some version of impact is by creating profits, helping a community, problem solving, right? Solving a problem is probably a way of getting to that.
From life. Satisfaction from life.
Satisfaction from life.
This is independence. This is independence.
Independence.
Innovation and solving the long-lasting problems.
So, I've asked this question to about 10,000 people over the last few years. Okay, in many of these addresses that I've been given the opportunity to talk to, and very rarely have I heard the answer money. So, 2 out of 20 were honest, but I will tell you that that is the ratio that I've seen throughout these meetings. But I think it is really the case. Most of us want to become an entrepreneur because we want to get more out of it, right? And that more out of life is definitely one part of that is money. We cannot deny that. Right? And becoming an entrepreneur is a great way of taking a shot at that. But it's a more certain way of other things, creating a greater social impact, creating an impact on job creation, solving a problem for somebody else, and so on and so forth. So I think the reason why you want to become an entrepreneur has to be very, very crystal clear in your mind, because when you are then an entrepreneur, right, like Sahil experienced on this stage, right, he had 200 people asking questions, and he probably had 2 million people out there asking the question as to why should I buy this service, right? So, the question that he raised, right? So, it is only going to be about having the energy to answer these questions. Many times these questions will come from outside, several times these questions will come from within. Right? And the only way you can have the energy to do it is if you have a very, very good reason to becoming an entrepreneur. Right? And getting great valuation for your company is not very easy, because that is a rare event, and that cannot be the reason that will drive you and have the energy, and have the energy to answer the question. Alright, so find your real reason why you raise your hand in this meeting. Okay. Alright, so I have like a few slides. So the lessons that I learned around entrepreneurship, right? So I'm going to talk about 2 or 3 concepts on this slide. Right, the first 2 concepts are around 4 M's and concept of balance. All right, these 4 M's are actually something that I even used today when I met 10, 11 teams that were demonstrating at the showcase. Right, so one very important lesson that I learned around entrepreneurial mindset, right, is that a lot of it is going to be about the man, the method, the market, and the money. Okay, everything that GV covered in his session, right, what do they call it? Alright, so everything that GV covered in his session, right? So, who are you as a person, and what is driving you to become an entrepreneur? That has to be very clear, right? Which is what I said earlier. The method, right? So, what is the problem that you're solving, and how is it that you're solving it, right? And everybody has to solve some problem, right? Which is, let's say, address the need of a customer and address it in a unique way. That is going to be important about the entrepreneurship venture. The market, right? Are you solving one person's problem? Are you solving a problem that many people have? Are you solving a problem which is small, or is it a big? Is it a niche, or is it a broadly applicable problem? What is the market that you are going after? Right? Is it a market that has a structural issue? As an example that we mentioned earlier, right? So these are some of the things that are going to be important. And finally, the money. Right? So the money is an intrinsic part of the enterprise, because you are doing an enterprise which has to be self-sustaining, right? And the answer lies in the unit economics. If you can make money out of every customer that you're serving, then you can have a self-sustaining venture, right? So the money is a very important part of the equation. Unless your venture is making money, you are not going to be able to make money, right? So these are the 4 M's that I think are important in entrepreneurship. The other thing is balance, right? So a lot of times there is a whole bunch of emphasis on customer. Right? Which is obviously you need to have that emphasis on customer because that is the starting point of the entire value stream. But it is very important that you have the same emphasis on two other parts of the startups that you have. Right? One is the employees and another is other stakeholders. The other stakeholders could be regulatory people who are driving the regulation. They could be your investors. They could be your family, for example. Right? The employees, of course. The reason why you need to keep these things in balance is because until and unless you maintain the balance of your demand and supply and people who are helping you in the process, it cannot be a very sustainable engine, right? And I think Professor Suresh said it extremely well. You are not going to be running a sprint; it will be a marathon, right? And every source of energy that you can find, you need to gather that and keep it and protect it and preserve it because it is going to be a marathon. Right? And the only way you can keep running that marathon is if you maintain the balance between these things. Right? So every time you're thinking about creating your venture, think about what is the canvas of that venture, who are the various stakeholders, and how are you taking care of all aspects and maintaining the balance. Okay, some interesting things that also reflect the mindset is valuation is always a derivative number, right? It is not something that you will get first. It's something that you will get last, right? And you will get it only as a derivation of the value that you have created, right? So when you have identified a need, you have solved that need, you have created a product that addresses that need, you are creating value for the customer. Only a portion of that value is what you will partake of. A sum of all of that is what your value is. Right? So if you see a company being valued at $1 billion, inherently that company would have created $100 billion of value for its customer base. Okay. So if you are worried about valuation, don't do that because valuation will happen. Worry about the number in the brackets, which is the value. How do you quantify the value that you're creating for your customer? If you just constantly worry about that, valuation. That's one. Second is, what I have found in many cases, including myself, right, is ambition, commitment, and capability are not at the same level. Often we have great ambition, but we don't have the commitment. Okay. Sometimes we have the ambition and we are committed behind the cause, but we don't have the capability. Okay. Sometimes we have the capability, a bunch of people who have a whole bunch of capability, they have a great ambition, but they just don't have commitment. Okay. The extent of your success will be limited by the least of these three. Okay. Your individual success will be limited by the least of these three. So you have to make sure that they are all at the same level and they are set a very high bar for that. And if there are aspects of your, makeup which don't fulfill one of the three, then you have to build a team that will make sure that the venture as a whole has the right levels of ambition commitment. Right? So when you are thinking about how do I fulfill my entrepreneurial dream, think about these things. Right? Am I committed to the cause? Do I have the right levels of ambition so that I can reach escape velocity? Do I have the right capabilities that are required to be either myself or as a team that are required to be right? Innovation to collaboration. So I kind of referred to that earlier. Technology businesses are more and more open systems now. Right? You mentioned about SAP right? They lock the customer in. But there are newer and newer software which are just unbundling the offerings and then are recreating the offerings in collaboration with other products, right? And that is going to be a new way. That is going to be the future of how people create technology businesses. Let respective areas of excellence develop, and the success of a business will depend on how well are you creating collaboration in the ecosystem. Change fast, fail fast, rise metrics, right? Again, something that we around this have been said before. What you do not measure will fail, right? Everything that you do has to become very, very measurable, quantified, and tracked at a maniacal level. Right? You have to be extremely paranoid about the metrics of your business. You have to define them well, and you have to track them. And the aspect about pivoting. Right? So, one of the important aspects about pivoting or about fine-tuning your businesses is failing fast, right? I mean, you are passionate about an idea, you're going behind an idea, and that can blind you from the ways in which that idea can fail. So you have to avoid those blind spots. You have to be open to being rational about your decisions. It's a hard balance, but being unemotional about chucking what you might have built and starting again from the beginning. Yeah. And finally, spot long-term trends, take bets, right? There is no return unless there is equivalent amount of risk involved. So, spotting long-term trends and taking bets is going to be important in terms of mindset as an objective. Right. So, I'm going to skip some of this for time, but one of the most important long-term trends that we spotted at Quantify is how enterprise adoption of AI was going to become mainstream. Right? We kind of started spotting this 10 years back and started early in the space, and today we are part of many transformational adoption of AI solutions in large companies, right? And the estimates are really crazy, like $4 trillion of economic impact that AI is supposed to make in the world, as an example. Right? And where are people using this? Right? So a lot of us are using products that have embedded machine learning or cognitive capabilities in them, unlocking of a phone using Face ID. Right? A very basic example like that. Frictionless customer experiences. During COVID, a lot of call centers, for example, were not able to support from physical locations. Right? Conversational AI then started to become mainstream very, very rapidly. Teleradiology, as an example, remote monitoring for physicians started to become mainstream. Many of these long-term trends, you have to be able to, read more, network more, identify what are the things that can become important for your business. Okay. So, as an example of another long-term trend that we are seeing again that Quantify is the cost of prediction, right? So, as the cost of prediction starts going down, right? So, and the cost of prediction is is a factor of the compute power that is required to compute the prediction and how often do you get it wrong, right? So the lesser the cost of predicting and the higher the accuracy of the prediction, the lower is the cost of the right prediction, right? As you can see today, what's happening is soon after 2010, companies like Netflix and Amazon, they actually started to use recommendation engines in their business, right? Helping customers discover the offerings on their platform. And you can see that Netflix, 80% of the stuff that you watch on Netflix is not by pressing on the search button. It is by clicking on a recommendation that is already available on the screen, right? And Amazon today gets 5% of recommendations converted into sales, right? So Amazon is actually way behind as compared to Netflix on this metric. But as the cost of prediction will drop, right, what will happen is Amazon is not even going to actually wait for you to place an order. It will actually first send you the stuff. So you will have somebody coming at home and actually carrying some stuff, and you will, out of the 5 things, you will probably choose 2 and let the other 3 go. Okay. Now the intent here is, how do I actually start pushing sales and discovering your need even before you have actually taken an action about it? Right? That's the kind of, you're kind of predicting the customer need even before the customer has actually expressed and taken an action on your platform. Right? Those are the kind of transformational things that machine learning, AI, and those kind of things can enable, and it will depend on how quickly can the process predict.
Excuse me, sir. I have a question. Like, as you mentioned, as Amazon might send you 5 products and you might select one. In case if the customer ends up buying none, doesn't it increase the cost of reverse logistics for the company?
Totally does, right? That's why they're not doing it right. They have to get.
Maybe Indian consumer psychology is totally different from how it will work in your solution.
Yeah, so I agree with that. I totally agree with you. I'm talking about a trend that is likely to happen where the cost of getting it wrong is, the chance of getting it wrong goes down drastically. Right? So we are not there yet. We have to wait to get there. But once that happens, right, a lot of things will.
Points you mentioned was change fast, drive matrix. Right? Can you give us one of the examples from your experience that it really had an impact, really had a big impact on your business and it grew? Can you give one such example?
So, one of the things I will tell you is the first time we went to, as we started building the team at Quantify. So, there are about 3,500 people who work at Quantify. Half of them, about 2,000 of them, this is their first job. Okay. So, there are people we directly hired from colleges over the years, and they have been Quantify. But that was not the case when we first started. So when we first started, we actually started to look for people who are called as data science unicorns, right? And who can actually handle the data, the infrastructure, and the mathematics that needs to go behind AI or machine learning, all of it together, right? And what we realized that it was a big struggle because there are unicorns as it, unicorns as it indicates are actually a mythical creature, right? So there are very, very few of them that we found. So our reaction to that was we actually split it into 3-4 different parts, and now actually it has become 6-7 different parts. And we started to create what we now call as synthetic unicorns, where we have people actually focus on developing expertise in parts of these skill sets and actually bring them together on a process and a technology platform so that they can execute projects together. Right? So that has actually helped us scale the organization and scale the reach that we are able to do. That's an example of how we reacted to supply concerns. All right. So, I'm just going to close with some of the things that, I was focusing on when I was at college, right? And I mentioned about a few of them already, but, have the right levels that are required in terms of capability, ambition, and commitment. It is going to be important to keep your energy levels up. Stay dynamic, right? Don't have any legacy carried forward in terms of, your knowledge. Make sure that you keep refreshing it. At all times, right? So, doing the entrepreneurial journey, a lot of it is not about the learning. A lot of it is actually about the unknown, right? The fixed ideas that we carry forward from our past and how we want to implement them, a lot of them have to be discarded. Right? Unless and until you discard your old ideas, you will not discover. Right? So stay dynamic. Be risk taking. Okay, I mean, you have to, like a lot of people ask me this question: when is a good time to start? Right? So, I mean, the good time to start was yesterday. So you just start, right? It is never like a good time to start. When you start, it's a good time to start. Right? In your journey as an entrepreneur, there is no way that you will not see a downside. Okay. So if you are starting in a down cycle, right, when things are bad and like startups are laying off people and funding is hard to come by and there is recession out there in the market, that probably is the best time, right? Because you will be building your organization, you will be building your business in the toughest way, and when good times come, then you are already there, right? So that's what I would say about risk taking, right? Networking. I think we heard about networking before also, and I think it is extremely critical in the competing network world. If you are going to start a business that is going to be a global business, you have to know that either your demand or your supply is going to be on two different parts of the planet, right? So you have to be very, very well networked around the world, right? And long-term perspective. So when I used to work at Samsung, somebody told me this, and that was my second year in the industry. So, and now I've been in the industry for 20 years, but this is something that I just never forget, which is your career is not a one-day match. Right? That is what was told to me in 2002, because 2020 did not exist. But if I was to give this modified example today, your career is not a 2020 match; it is a test. Right? And you have to look at it like that. When you look at it like that, and I think I was fortunate that somebody told me this at that time, and I was also fortunate that I kind of learned under GD for 10 years at Samsung, right? Because I was told that the first 10 years of a 40-year career, you are just still learning, right? So don't be in a rush. Think of it as a long-term, goal, and just go at it now. That's it.
Unlike real entrepreneurs who have stories to tell from their life, business school people only tell stories that they read from outside, then they wave hands and then they finish their education. So, as is like every other business school, practically, let me tell you the story. Let's start with the story. So, many years ago, we had a startup which was trying to develop an operating system for low cost phones. These feature phones, which a lot of people use in rural areas, and this was about 10 years ago. There were a lot more people using this low-cost phones than what people are using right now. So the problem with low-cost phones is that the chipsets are quite weak. At that point of time, Nokia was big. Nokia OS was quite clunky. So they said, okay, let's disrupt, like as it is with every other entrepreneur, they want to disrupt something or other. So they said, let's disrupt this space, because if we have a new operating system, then a lot more features can be enabled on the feature phones, which basically the low income people are using. So this was a startup on Banerghat Road where I am, which is very far away from civilization. And then there was another company which was also trying to do a low-cost phone for the same reasons, that there are a lot more low-cost phones in the world than smartphones, but let us enable a better operating system for low-cost phones. But this company was based out of Silicon Valley. It's a Fortune 500 company. They had millions of dollars that was given to them. So this entrepreneur who wanted to start, he said, you know what? He went to a conference and was trying to talk to the people. He said, what do you think? Do you think we can come up with a new operating system for the new class phone. A lot of people said, yeah, sounds good, but then how do we do it? But they met one guy who said, I also have been thinking about this. He said, let's start. He said, let's start. So, when you are thinking of starting, right, you need money, you need resources, you need somebody to give you a large check to start. He said, what do we do? And this was around 2007-8 when TCS and Infosys were recruiting trespassers even, right? Even people were walking by saying that there is a direction that has come join. And in that kind of situation, who do you think will join this tiny little startup? First of all, on Balagata Road, they were not getting into. Jobs were plenty. So people who couldn't even make it to or trespass TCS or Infosys were the ones who were trying to join. Whereas on the other side, you have a Fortune 500 company, they could hire MIT engineers, they can write large checks. So that's how they were developing the operating system. So these guys said, you know what, guys, at the end of the day, we have a couple of people who could work, but we need more. We need more in the sense, we need some engineers, we need computers, we need an office space. So where do we get it? So this fellow looked around and said, I have a friend, let me go talk to him. He went and go talk to this friend. He said, you have a small company, you have a bunch of people working for you, but you're usually working in the US shift. And so there are times when your machines are not being used. So here's my value proposition. I need some engineers. First of all, I need office space. I need computers. I need engineers. I can't pay you any money. I'll give you 2% of my company. What is the valuation of this company? $0 billion. It is nothing, it's just an idea. They are good friends, they can't say anything. He said, okay. What to do, you are my friend, I give you. So this guy started work. They worked for a year and they said, okay, they were able to build a little bit of products. They were doing some services to get money. And somebody told them there is this place in IIMB, they offer incubation. It's very good. And friends said, I'm going to move to Jaipur because that's a better place for me to start. He moves to Jaipur and the guy comes to IIT. Continuing to work on the product. It just so happened that he went to a conference in Bombay. He bumped into somebody. You know, what do you do? He said, I'm developing an operating system for low-cost phones. He said, oh really? Because I'm from this company. We are also working on something similar. He said, oh, okay, good, great. He said, can you show me what you have? I said, no, I don't have my equipment, but I have a demo that I can show you on my computer. So he showed his demo on the computer. This guy looks at it and said, don't move, I'll come back. So he goes and catches hold of another guy and he says, look, you should talk to this guy. So he brings the other guy here. He said, show the demo again. Sunil showed the demo again. The other fellow was like that. He said, you know what? This guy is from Qualcomm. So he was a Qualcomm engineer. He was also heading a division for operating system for low-cost phones. He had this MIT engineer. They had about $25 million check. These guys had nothing. They had 2% that he had given to a friend. But he had a product which was far better than what Qualcomm had. Right? That came as a surprise. He said, how is it that you guys are able to do so much more than what our engineers have been able to do? So he said, what is your problem? He said, you know what, we don't have money. Nobody is giving us money. We are just doing big services here, there, and getting money and putting it back into our product. He said, good. So he goes back to the US and then talks to Qualcomm Ventures and gives them $50,000. Says that now use this to develop. Don't do all these services, just focus and develop this product. So 1 year later, he buys them out for about $12 million. How much did his friend make? 2% of 12 million, not bad money. Right? 240,000, quick one. You guys are on data analysts. Not bad money, $250,000. So, the question is, how is it that a small company with no resources, no talent, located in Bannerghatta Road, have a product better than somebody who is a Fortune 500 company with large talented teams trying to develop similar products, right? So that is the exciting part of entrepreneurship. I've seen people with no money. Avinash Taurab, fellows bought a 7.5 crore house. He started with nothing. He started with sending PPTs to companies saying that, would you want to buy my product? There was no product. No product. He just sent it to people and somebody said yes. He said, how much are you willing to pay? And that's how he started. Very wealthy fellow right now, made a few $1 million. So the thing about entrepreneurship is, the exciting part is, you can come up with products or services which are far better than the incumbents. And that's the exciting part. The hard part is doing it. So what do I tell you? Entrepreneurship is not about hitting the ball out of the park. Entrepreneurship is not about saying I'm going to make $1 billion company. It's about taking little shots. As she said, right? Procrastination. So it's about doing the doable. If you take 1 run out of every ball, you get 6 runs. You don't have to keep waiting like Dhoni until the last ball and then hit it out of the park. You don't have to do that. You can keep taking runs. And once in a while you get a bad ball, you hit it for 4. So it's not about, so being very careful about what you do. So doing the doable is the first thing. And the second thing is, it's a probabilistic event. 90% of your ventures will fail. 50% of your second venture fails. About 40% of your third venture fails, right? A lot of people ask me, what is failure? We don't think failure when you're cycling, you fall, you get up, you cycle again. How many of us actually have cycled without falling down? So failure is the inherent part. Don't look at failure of the venture as failure of the entrepreneur. It's just a venture, it's a project. It's like cycle. Cycle, you fall down, you go tell your parents, I fell down. Nobody will give you anything. Yeah, that's how you learn. So don't look at failure as, oh man, it's going to stick to me. Look at it as a learning because it's a probabilistic event. The more number of shots you take it, better you get at it. And it's also a mindset change. You learn how to talk to customers. You learn how to talk to your suppliers. Right? You know how to talk to your fellows. You know what? We are going to make it big, man. Yeah, we're going to make it big. I have no money. So I have to start entrepreneurs to come and say that this guy is telling me the curd in our office is not good. We don't have money to give him next month's salary. He doesn't know that. Because he's like, curd is bad. Next time we will do better job. So the way in which you need to understand, it's quite a hard journey. But how do you come up with good ideas? Now that it's interesting, now that it's good, the good place to start is the resources that you control. So what are the resources you control? Your intelligence, your personality, and your network. So look at who you are, look at what you know, look at whom you know. 3 W's. Come up with a list of ideas. I can do this, I can do that. List whole bunch of ideas. Then you go and see which part is interesting, which part you go talk to somebody else and say, you want to join my company? I'll give you 2% of my $0 billion company. So get resources from outside. So it's not a individual game, it's a team game. So how do you collaborate with people? How do you look for spare resources? You don't need to have money. You need to have spare resources. You guys know Virgin Atlantic?
Yes.
Yeah. Apparently, he started airlines by calling up Boeing, do you have spare planes lying around? The answer is yes. That's how he started. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs do the same. I have a company called Slay Coffee. Slay Coffee started, how did he start? He looked up and said, I need coffee to be made. So what do? He called up some dairy farms here or there. Do you have spare capacity? So some dairy farms said, yeah, We are only working half the time. So he would go, use that dairy farm for 4 days, get enough product for 6 months and sell. So if you say that for you to set up a coffee place, you need to have this big dairy plant, look for spare resources. Look who can give you, here is something that you can use. Right? So start with who you are, start with what you know, develop your network. The most important thing about entrepreneurship is risk. We are not a risk taker. I would like to, I don't have money, right? So my father is not wealthy. So how do you look for the resources for your income? So ask a lot of people. During COVID, we are just sitting, not knowing what to do. Then they said, play stock market. With Zerodha, it's even easier, no? Play stock market. Money is going, now money is going. Then money was going up. Now money is only going down. Like evaporating, like nobody is like going down. So I asked my cousin, what should I do if I want to get into the stock market? He said, let's start with the money that you're willing to lose. I said, no, I want to make money. He said, no, start with the money that's okay. You're not going to, your lifestyle won't change. Put 50,000, put 1 lakh, put whatever money that you think is not going to change your lifestyle. Don't borrow money, put surplus resource. Similarly, you want to take a shot at entrepreneurship, commitment is an important thing. So put your affordable loss. How much am I willing to lose? 10,000 rupees, 50,000 rupees, 2 years of my life, right? So decide that commitment, saying that I'm going to commit for the next 2 years and see what happens. And then stick by it. 2 years later, decide whether you're going to get a job or go back and start or continue your venture. Right? So with these two things, you have enough to play around. Start with who you are, what you know, set an affordable loss, talk to people and get commitments. So it's very important to get your first venture out of the way. So do it as rapidly as possible. So don't look for big hits. I would suggest here's what you do. We do something called 250 rupee venture. So we tell our students, we have 250 rupees, not per person, for the whole group. And you now need to go start a venture. What do we do? I don't know. You go figure it out. And so some people said, okay, they started selling roses. This was pre-COVID. So this was on this Jan time frame. So just before Feb, we said, I go and sell roses before Valentine's Day. So he got hold of roses, got 250 rupees, that's all he has to do. So went outside Bannerghatta Road, tried selling people, they were not buying. Somebody is going to go to Lal Bagh. A lot of people, young couples will all be there, go to Lal Bagh.
Target customer.
The target customer is not on Bannerghatta Road, go to. So he went to Lal Bagh, started saying that you want to buy a rose for your girlfriend. He said, okay. He realized 80% of the people who were going and asking was buying. Then he had another brain wave. He said, white rose and red rose. Red rose is 80 rupees, white rose is 120 rupees. You have your girlfriend next to you, you don't want to be cheap. So, take that 250 rupees, do a venture in your place. Somebody tried selling pan. Pan in I am saying that, you know what, all these women can't go out. They also like eating pan. So 50% of the population is not getting to eat pan, we will sell pan. So they started selling pan, something worked out, something didn't work out. Somebody else did pani puri. 250 rupees, I realized they were putting far too much potato. So after a little while, potato got over, but they still have tons of pani puris left. So what do? He said, you know what, I got an idea. What do? Go buy Maaza, Sprite, put it and then give it to them. You know what, Prof? I said, what? Alcohol is not allowed on campus. Otherwise, it would have been a super success. So when you have limited resources, you become very, very clever. So do that experiment. 250 rupees. He says that I'm going to start start selling and you realize that it will start to become more entrepreneurial. Yeah? It's a very easy shot, enough to do. I wish you all well.
Salinger from Event B. What to eat, what to cook. He's trying to solve that along with nutrition. Interesting is his name also, horse mouth. That was the first thing we all liked. As the name suggests, feel you. Asif, thank you so much. All the